Think you know a story inside and out, all the twists and turns. Sometimes, looking closer at just one character, peeling back the layers, can completely change how you see everything. We're about to take a deep dive into the life of Haymitch Abernathy, the sarcastic survivor, the reluctant mentor. We thought we had him figured out.
Right. We thought we did.
But thanks to a fresh look, especially with the new information from Sunrise on the Reaping, there's a whole lot more to uncover.
That's right. This deep dive into a comprehensive YouTube analysis of Haymitch's life, now enriched by the prequel, has one core mission for you: to reveal how these new details fundamentally reshape your understanding of him.
Yeah, like how it all fits together now.
Exactly. We're talking about the roots of his motivations, the profound impact of his relationship, and the hidden depths that informed every action he took in the original Hunger Games trilogy.
And crucially, we're sticking just to the books here, right?
Absolutely. And to keep things focused for you, we're concentrating solely on the book versions of the story, leaving the movie adaptations aside, just the text.
Okay, let's unpack this. Haymitch, born on July 4th. Even that simple fact carries a weight, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely.
His birthday, forever linked with the annual reaping.
It's a date that casts a long shadow over his entire existence, you know? A yearly reminder of the game's looming presence.
Ugh.
But that's just the surface. Consider his family, the Abernathys. They weren't exactly known for their loyalty to the capital, were they?
Not at all. A history of resistance runs deep in their lineage.
Right.
His mother, Willa May, ran a laundry business down in the seam, working tirelessly to make ends meet. And his father. The suspicion is strong, isn't it?
Very strong.
That his death in that mining fire wasn't just an accident, but deliberate retribution.
Yeah.
For his rebellious leanings.
Punishment. It's a harsh reality shaping Haymitch from his earliest days. A brutal environment indeed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just his parents who shaped him. He shared a close bond with his younger brother, Sid.
Little Sid.
Plus, the tragic loss of his twin sisters at birth just underscores the sheer hardship of life, Trick 12. It paints a picture of a family constantly battling against the odds.
And with his father gone, the responsibility for their survival landed squarely on young Haymitch's shoulders. He stepped up in a huge way.
I really did.
Even taking Tesserae those meager rations of food and oil an astonishing 20 times.
20 times? That's far more than he strictly needed.
It's a massive sacrifice just to keep his mother and Sid going. It really makes you see a deep-seated sense of duty in him from such a young age.
That staggering act, taking Tesserae 20 times, far beyond his own need, reveals a profound selflessness ingrained in him from a young age. It's a stark contrast to the jaded cynicism we see later, suggesting that this inherent goodness was buried, not erased, by his trauma.
Yeah, buried deep.
And even the clothes he wore tell a story, don't they? Fashioned from those courtesy of the capital flour sacks.
Ugh, yeah. A constant visual reminder of their subjugation, literally wearing the name of their oppressors. It's a seemingly small detail, but it speaks volumes about the capital's pervasive control. But it wasn't all bleakness in his early years. He did have those friendships.
Right, with Burdock, Everdeen, and Blair.
Friendships that offer a vital glimpse into the social dynamics within District 12.
Definitely. The Everdeens, having a slightly better economic standing, could afford things like dough clay.
Right.
The image of young Haymitch at their home, shaping those little animals and stars to take back to his family. Quite a poignant one.
It is. It shows a childhood yearning for normalcy amidst the pervasive poverty. And then there's the less idyllic side of those early social interactions. His intense dislike for Mason Donner.
Yes, Mason.
That girl from the merchant section who gave him that cool nickname, Itchy Itchy Haymitchy.
Awful. And it stuck, didn't it?
It stuck for weeks just because she had a bit of social power. Childhood can be surprisingly brutal, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. It really underscores the class divisions, even within District 12, and how something as simple as a nickname could ostracize. But he also possessed positive attributes in his youth. He was remarkably athletic, the fastest runner in school.
Almost the fastest.
Right, second only to Woodbine Chance, who was a couple of years older. That athleticism, as we'll see, becomes significant later.
Definitely. And he even witnessed Luella McCoy's birth, right? A moment of her father proudly presenting her the Seam community.
Yeah, they lived just a few houses apart. There was an immediate connection, wasn't there?
Seems like it. Even a childhood infatuation from Luella's side, calling him sweetheart.
A term he apparently continued to use long after those childish feelings faded. It's interesting.
It is. These early connections, the bonds of friendship, and even those fleeting childhood affections paint a picture of a boy capable of deep attachment.
Something the Capitol would try its best to extinguish. Which brings us inevitably to Lenore Dovebear.
Lenore Dove.
A figure who becomes absolutely pivotal in understanding Haymitch.
Absolutely. Sneaking under the fence with Burdock, discovering that meadow. It must have felt like a whole new world opening up.
Brief escape.
A brief escape from the harsh realities of District 12. And that's where he first encountered Lenore Dove with her fiercely protective geese.
Her geese. They were her constant companions, weren't they? Her earliest protectors.
Yeah.
And it's through Lenore Dove's world that we see another facet of Haymitch developing his skill with a knife.
Right, honed through that game, Mumpeg.
Well, he might not have reached Blair's level of expertise. It was undoubtedly a formative experience that would prove crucial later.
No doubt. And that Peacekeeper bicycle, remember that?
Oh, yeah. For children growing up in the seam, that must have felt like discovering buried treasure.
Totally. The jealousy it sparked in Mason Lee and Marilee Donner, who had their own bike. It really highlights the deep yearning for something so simple.
Something most children in the capital would take for granted.
Right. That brief week of shared joy, learning to ride together before it vanished. It's like a microcosm of the fleeting moments of happiness in their lives.
Constantly threatened by the capital's shadow. Exactly. And from those shared moments in the meadow, from those stolen rides, Haymitch and Lenore Dove's relationship blossomed into something much...
Into love.
Into love. They even adopted that unique phrase from the CVY, I love you like all fire.
I love you like all fire.
Ugh.
It speaks to an intense, passionate connection in a world deliberately stripped of warmth and affection.
It really does. The CVY, that former nomadic group within District 12, known for their vibrant music and their deeply ingrained rebellious spirit.
And Lenore Dove truly embodied that spirit, didn't she? Never one to shy away from challenging the status quo.
Not at all. He witnessed her arrest at just 12 years old for
12.
Yeah. And then there was that strong suspicion surrounding her involvement in the fire at the reaping stage. She was a spark of open defiance against the control.
A spark in the darkness, definitely. And her music served as a powerful form of resistance, a way of keeping the flame of rebellion alive in their community.
Absolutely. Singing songs like The Hanging Tree, with those incredibly potent lyrics, nothing they can take from you was ever worth...
Wow, that's a philosophy that clearly resonated deeply with her.
And undoubtedly shaped Haymitch's early understanding of injustice and oppression.
Yeah, he recognized that she was sharper, more intellectual than he was in many ways, and he admired her fiercely for it.
He did. He would buy her books whenever he could find them, even that slightly misguided book about raising chickens.
Right. But also that old map from before the dark days, and that cherished volume of poetry.
Such thoughtful gifts, really demonstrating his deep affection and acknowledging her intellect and spirit. Small acts of profound love in a world actively trying to crush any sense of beauty or connection.
Or independent thought.
Exactly. That shared moment of quiet understanding after they witnessed that public hanging.
Wow.
Then seeing those two unexpected rainbows arching over the mountains, her tears were for the inherent beauty of the world constantly being marred by the capital's cruelty.
A profound moment of shared grief and understanding of their reality.
It was. And even in her daily routines, their lives were deeply intertwined. Haymitch diligently helping with his mother's arduous...
That grueling 2-hour trek just to fetch water.
Yeah. And his partnership with Hattie, brewing and selling liquor, ironically, he never touched a drop of it himself.
Right. Interesting detail.
And Hattie's stark warning to him, never keep a fire smoldering because it would lead to being caught. Fire is catching.
Oof, it's almost a prophecy hanging over them, isn't it?
It really is. It's a warning laden with foreshadowing, not only for Lenore Dove's open rebellion, but also for Haymitch's own eventual acts of defiance against the capital.
Yeah.
All of these formative experiences, the love, the loss, the quiet acts of resistance, they all converge on his 16th birthday and that devastating reaping for the 50th.
The second quarter quell. 4 tributes from each district, the odds stacked against him higher than ever before.
With his name entered a staggering 20 times.
20 times that morning, putting on those shorts, that small act of defiance with the courtesy of the Capitol slogan, facing the wrong way.
Little rebellions.
His promise to his mother to bring back extra water, clinging to the hope of more time with Lenore Dove.
And Hattie's unusual birthday gift, another bottle of alcohol, which, ironically, he still had no desire to consume himself.
Right, planning instead to trade it or use it to connect with Lenore Dove's family.
His visit to Lenore Dove and her geese, and her poignant gift to him, that Flinch striker necklace.
The hissing snake poised at a long-necked bird's beak, powerful symbol of protection, maybe, or just the constant danger lurking.
Could be both. It definitely felt like a protective charm, something to ward off harm, and him getting her favorite gumdrops.
Those small, sweet gestures of affection before everything irrevocably changed. Then the reaping.
Seeing Llewellyn McCoy's name drawn.
And then Mason Donner's.
Yeah.
The girl he'd carried that childhood dislike for. A waif of cold dread must have washed over him.
Absolutely. And then the boy, Wyatt Callow, the only one who could outrun him.
And Woodbine Chance.
Who made that desperate attempt to escape and paid the ultimate price for it. Brutal.
And then The moment Haymitch instinctively intervened to protect Leonard Dove from the Peace.
The unthinkable happened. He was brutally forced to take Woodbine's place.
Just awful. Stepping onto that stage, that final unspoken exchange with Leonard Dove, their eyes meeting.
As he mouthed, "I love you like all fire," and her silent response, "You too."
A deeply personal moment amidst the public spectacle of horror. And then Flutter Heavensby.
Flutter,
Yeah.
cruelly filming their goodbyes, forcing Willamay and Sid through take after take of manufactured grief for the cameras.
So manipulative. But Lenore Dove's resolute refusal to participate in that spectacle speaks volumes about her unwavering disdain for the Capitol's propaganda.
It truly highlights her unyielding integrity. And Haymitch's heartfelt words to his mother and Sid, his palpable regret at telling Sid he now had to be the man of the house.
A crushing burden for a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, giving Sid those gumdrops meant for Leonard Dove a poignant passing of both affection and responsibility in that devastating moment.
That final, heartbreaking glimpse of Leonard Dove standing on the hill as the train pulled away, clutching those gumdrops. A goodbye that belonged only to...
A silent promise of remembrance. His bruised hand from slamming against the train window. The immediate physical pain, a stark reflection of the deeper, agonizing grief tearing through him.
Yeah. His survival instincts seemed to kick in almost immediately on the train, though.
They did, leading to that crucial early alliance with Luella. His wary interactions with Flute, cautiously trying to assess his motivations and elite.
And his subtle act of defiance in refusing that birthday cake. A small but significant gesture, maybe.
Perhaps an innate unwillingness to play the Capitol's manipulative games even in those initial hours. He was already keenly observing the other tributes, wasn't he?
Yeah. Utterly baffled by Maisa Lee's open defiance of Drusilla and her remarkable resilience in the face of brutal punishment.
Even in those early, tense moments, you can see him taking stock, assessing strengths, weaknesses, and the overall dynamics of this deadly competition.
And then arriving in the Capitol. The sheer humiliation of those archaic coal miner costumes.
Designed by the consistently inept stylist Magnos. Just terrible.
And the parade. That utterly disastrous runaway horse, culminating in the horrifying image of Luella's brutal death.
Impaled on that spike, it was a brutal, visceral awakening to the true, deadly stakes of the games.
But Haymitch didn't break. He reacted with a powerful, unexpected act of rebellion.
Lifting Luella's body, stealing that District 12 chariot.
And riding it directly to President Snow's mansion, forcing him to confront the gruesome reality of her death.
And Snow's reaction, cold, dismissive laughter, that must have solidified something deep within.
Hardened his resolve, for sure. His whispered vow that someone, someday, would knock Snow off his high horse.
That was a truly pivotal moment of raw defiance that, ironically and tragically, transformed him into a spectacle the Capitol citizens' morbid lord.
Right. Their sudden calls for sponsorship, his act of spitting directly in their faces. And yet, their perverse fascination with him only seemed to intensify.
It's a chilling reflection of the Capitol's deeply warped values and their appetite for dramatic, even disrespectful displays.
And then came the introductions to his mentors, those from District 3, offering technical insight.
And the incredibly empathetic Mags from District 4. District 12, having no living victors of its own, couldn't offer that crucial guidance.
Right. Mags's immediate, heartfelt empathy for Luella's tragic fate.
And in that moment, the dam finally broke for Haymitch. All of that pent-up grief and trauma poured out in her comforting embrace.
A truly crucial moment of vulnerability, a desperately needed release of the immense pressure he was under.
Yeah. And his immediate, visceral response when asked what he desired in the arena, a swift death.
Solely so his mother and brother wouldn't have to endure the agonizing spectacle of watching him die. God.
And his deep-seated fear of those mutated weasel mutts, a lingering psychological scar from the horrors of previous...
Understandable. His training sessions, that inherent, almost instinctive skill with a knife, hitting the target with deadly accuracy.
A sudden flashback to playing Mumpeg with Blair in the seam. He was even beginning to form unexpected bonds with some of the other tributes.
With the resilient Maisa Lee and the stoic Wyatt.
Particularly impressed by Maisa Lee's grounded nature and her earlier acts of defiance against the Capitol's control.
Those connections were tentatively forming amidst the ever-present threat of the arena. That brutal, unprovoked attack with the sledgehammer.
Yeah, the chilling realization that a significant number of tributes were armed even before entering the games. It created a volatile and dangerous dynamic.
And they chose not to escalate at that moment.
Right. Plutarch's pointed question afterward about why Haymitch didn't retaliate perhaps subtly planting seeds of doubt or testing his reaction.
Interesting. And then that significant meeting with Bay, the District 3 mentor.
And the heartbreaking revelation of his forced mentorship of his own son, Art, as a cruel punishment for an act of sabotage against the Capitol.
That realization must have hit Haymitch hard, that his own seemingly random reaping might have been deliberately manipulated.
That he wasn't alone in this manufactured tragedy orchestrated by the Capitol. It significantly broadened his perspective.
Yeah, fueling his growing understanding that the Hunger Games weren't just a chaotic free-for-all, but a meticulously designed system.
A machine created by the Capitol that perhaps could be broken. That dawning realization was pivotal.
It led him to join Amperd's alliance, right?
That unlikely coalition of non-career tributes they called the Netty Newcomers, a phrase Amperd fondly recalled from his own father.
A testament to finding strength in unity against overwhelming odds.
Definitely. Even amidst his own immense personal struggle and fear, his inherent compassion shone through.
Particularly for the weaker tributes from District 6, including the vulnerable Welly. He seemed to instinctively adopt a protective role towards them.
A flicker of that earlier selflessness, and then that completely unexpected detour to Plutarch's opulent man.
Talk about whiplash. A stark and jarring contrast to the squalor of District 12 and even the sterile environment of the training facilities.
The finest liquors imaginable were on display, yet Haymitch maintained his staunch sobriety.
Which is significant, given where he ends up.
Very. That intellectually stimulating conversation they shared in Plutarch's library, made possible by the education Leonard Dove had so lovingly imparted.
His insightful interpretation of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, focusing on the desperate act of drinking to forget lost love.
It offered a profound glimpse into Haymitch's own burgeoning inner turmoil and grief even then.
Yeah, and then President Snow's unexpected arrival, his obvious signs of illness.
Haymitch's quick, astute thinking, observing Snow's actions, even taking a sip of Snow's milk.
Which was incredibly risky.
Totally. Leading to the chilling realization that Snow had likely poisoned someone and perhaps himself as a calculated move to deflect suspicion.
A dangerous game of observation and deduction played out in that lavish room. A remarkably bold move.
Demonstrating a level of cunning and sharp intellect far beyond his years, and then the incredibly personal violence.
Being forced to hand over Lenore Dove's cherished flinch striker to Snow.
Yeah. Snow's chillingly detailed knowledge of District 12, the CVY's history, and even Lenore Dove herself.
That small inscription on the striker, "I love you like all fire, LD," it clearly resonated deeply and unnervingly with Snow.
And deeply unsettled Haymitch. Snow even brought up the name of Lucy Greybeard, a ghost from his own mysterious past.
Further underscoring the Capitol's long reach and his own vulnerability, and then that brutal, direct ultimatum.
Behave according to the Capitol's wishes, or his loved ones back in District 12 would suffer unspeakable consequences.
The Snow's chilling parting words, "Snow lands on top."
It wasn't just a statement. It was a constant, menacing threat hanging over Haymitch. And then came the truly horrifying reveal
of Lulu, that innocent District 11 tribute surgically and cruelly altered to resemble Luella.
Snow's perverse demand that Haymitch somehow convince the Capitol audience that this distorted figure was actually his lost love.
It was deliberate psychological torment, forcing him to confront a grotesque imitation of the person he held most dear.
His profound pity for Lulu in that moment was palpable. Discovering the drugs being administered and the hidden microphone.
Lulu wasn't even in control of her own words or actions anymore. A truly horrific violation.
Yeah. And then Bay's desperate, whispered plea to Haymitch and Art to help him blow up the arena.
His insistence that it was merely a machine that could be destroyed.
Haymitch's solemn promise to Bay to protect Art, a deeply felt commitment made with the agonizing knowledge that fulfilling it would likely mean abandoning the fragile alliance of the Netty Newcomers.
That promise created a heavy moral conflict within him. His subsequent, rather unorthodox private training session.
Deliberately portraying himself as someone who would betray the alliance. It was a strategic act of deception.
A calculated risk that somehow earned him that unprecedentedly low score of 1.
A score that became, in its own way, a quiet badge of rebellion. And the game makers inexplicably allowing the flinch striker as his personal token.
Maybe a subtle manipulation orchestrated by Snow himself, fully aware of its immense sentimental value to Haymitch.
Quite possibly. And then Effie Trinket's unexpected last-minute intervention after Magnus's spectacular failure with Haymitch's styling.
Right. Even in those intensely high-pressure moments, Effie's unwavering dedication to her role, to the tribute she was assigned, truly shines through.
Haymitch even offering a small moment of comfort by helping her with her spilled makeup. a fleeting connection amidst the surrounding chaos.
His interview with Caesar Flickerman, it was nothing short of iconic.
Oh yeah, his blunt, unfiltered remarks about the other tribute's intelligence, his almost defiant pride in his absurdly low score.
That unexpected shout-out to the liquor patrons back in District 12, the Capitol audience absolutely devoured it.
He masterfully played the role of the charming, rebellious rascal, carefully masking the deeper turmoil within.
That standing ovation he received, it really highlights the Capitol's bizarre and often contradictory fascination with the tribute.
Totally. And Plutarch's seemingly casual post-interview photo shoot, that surprisingly philosophical conversation they engaged in.
Even then, you get the sense that Plutarch was carefully observing Haymitch, perhaps already considering him for a future unforeseen role.
Could be. And then the cruelly staged phone call with Lenore Dove, a deeply manipulative act orchestrated by the Cap.
Her fabricated story of being arrested but soon to be released, specifically designed to give Haymitch a false sense of hope.
To make him prioritize his own survival, their loving exchange, that whispered promise to meet again in the meadow.
Their shared, deeply meaningful phrase, "I love you like all fire."
And Lenore Dove's heartfelt vow of mating for life. Such a powerful declaration of their enduring commitment. Just heartbreaking, knowing it was fake.
Brutal. And then Plutarch, in a moment of unexpected candor, revealing some of the deadly secrets of the arena.
The synchronized rising and setting of the artificial sun. The cleverly disguised flower berms concealing the mutt's entry.
His direct, almost conspiratorial statement. The country needed him to succeed. The stakes were far, far higher than just Haymitch's personal survival.
Yeah. That deeply emotional hug with Mesa Lee, Wyatt, and even Lulu before entering the arena, it spoke volumes about the genuine bonds they had managed to form.
In the face of imminent death, Effie's small but significant act of making the flinch striker visible on his costume.
Promising to deliver it to Lenore Dove if Haymitch didn't survive. A truly poignant gesture of hope and remembrance.
The arena itself, a breathtakingly beautiful landscape, concealing unimaginable dangers.
Trusting Plutarch's cryptic information, Haymitch made the crucial decision to head north.
The discovery of the poisonous stream and that recurring, almost mystical warning from the gray rabbit. It's a motif that appears again and again.
The gray rabbit does seem to act almost as a guardian figure, doesn't it? A fleeting symbol of luck, or perhaps a guide.
Yeah, maybe. The devastatingly high death toll during the initial bloodbath, including 16 of the Medi newcomers and the steadfast Wyatt.
It was a brutal and deeply personal loss that undoubtedly affected Haymitch profoundly.
And then Lulu, sent into the arena by the game makers as a cruel pawn, her horrifying and agonizing death.
At the hands of that capital design device, Haymitch's act of mercy, ending her suffering.
And his defiant, silent message to the unseen game maker. That was him drawing a clear moral line in the sand amidst the brutality.
Carrying Lulu's lifeless body into the relative cover of the woods, a small but significant act of dignity in that brutal arena.
The sudden, terrifying attack by the mutated butterfly.
And his instinctive use of Lenore Dove's flinch striker to defend himself. A tangible connection to his lost love, even in the midst of such visceral violence.
Finding that hidden opening to the tunnels beneath the arena, exactly as Plutarch had described.
The tense meeting with Art and their successful collaborative act of destroying the crucial water tank. Small strategic victory.
Amidst the overwhelming horror of the games, but then the swift and brutal death of young Art.
Those vicious squirrel mutations, Haymitch's utter helplessness, his complete inability to save him, breaking that solemn promise he had made to Bay.
Crushing, the arena malfunctioning in response to their sabotage, only to inexplicably repair itself, that moment of despair for Haymitch.
The weight of his failure and broken promise must have been immense. His descent into self-harm in that.
A desperate, visceral desire to simply cease to exist. But even in that profound despair, a flicker of his inherent resilience remained.
Leading to his renewed plan to target the generator, getting trapped in the thorny holly hedges only to be saved yet again by the timely intervention of a gray rabbit.
It's an almost surreal element in this brutal reality, like something out of a fable.
It really is. Attacking and killing those 3 career tribute, a desperate act of survival, only to be immediately overpowered by the formidable panache.
And then the unexpected intervention of Mesa Lee saving his life.
That sudden realization, the shocking understanding that he had now become a killer, it was a profound and irrevocable turning point.
Forming that incredibly strong, almost unspoken bond with Mesa Lee in the aftermath, their mutual agreement to share everything.
That deep understanding that neither one of them could ever bring themselves to kill the other. Their decision to become brother and sister in this deadly arena.
Sealed with that simple yet powerful pinky promise to defy the Capitol in whatever way they could. Their shared rebellion taking root.
Haymitch, quoting his father's powerful word, "Don't let the Capitol paint your poster with your blood, paint your own poster."
It became a guiding principle for their fragile alliance, a mantra of resistance. Their subsequent trials together, the gruesome blood-sucking ladybugs,
the terrifying giant porcupine mutation, and the continued heartbreaking loss of the remaining Nettie newcomers.
their unexpected encounter with those capital game makers inside the arena itself.
Mesa Lee acting swiftly and decisively while Haymitch momentarily froze, paralyzed by the suddenness of it.
Her understandable anger, his immediate distress and guilt. It created a significant near break in their hard-won bond.
But her ultimate forgiveness, their practical solution of using the blowtorch to cut through the seemingly impenetrable hedge, their shared resilience as a pair.
Finally discovering the heavily guarded generator at the bottom of that treacherous cliff, Mesa Lee making the difficult decision to leave.
Not wanting to be the one Haymitch had to face in the inevitable final confrontation.
His subsequent discovery of the invisible force field, a crucial piece of information that shifted the entire dynamic of the arena.
And the game maker's brutal and targeted retaliation, those genetically engineered bird mutations, specifically programmed to attack and kill only Mesa.
Just horrific. Haymitch's agonizing decision to stay by her side in her final moments, their final silent pinky promise.
A devastating and irreversible loss for him. His grief in that moment must have been utterly immense.
A fresh wave of sorrow washing over him amidst the ongoing nightmare, finding and briefly caring Jerdwell.
But the heartbreaking necessity of having to leave her in order to find sustenance for himself, a stark reminder of the brutal survival imperative.
Receiving that seemingly benevolent parachute of milk marked the chilling words, courtesy of the capital.
A direct taunting message from President Snow, always playing games.
The horrifying discovery of Welly, brutally decapitated by Silka, the ruthless District 1 tribute.
Haymitch's immediate and explosive rage, that desperate, brutal fight with Silka.
Ultimately using the returning axe and the unexpected presence of the force field to his advantage to finally kill her.
A moment of raw, strategic cunning, born out of profound grief and righteous anger.
In a desperate act of ingenuity and defiance, Haymitch creating that makeshift bomb, utilizing whatever scraps he could find.
And incorporating Leonard Dove's cherished flinch striker, symbolically painting his own poster amidst the surrounding chaos and destruction.
That final tender kiss he pressed to the flinch striker, a silent goodbye to Leonard Dove, a moment of remembrance before he hurled the bomb.
Throwing the bomb, believing perhaps that it was finally over, waking up in that sterile, confining glass enclosure, his own body severely injured.
Broken, witnessing that stark, symbolic image of a defenseless gray rabbit being devoured by a predatory snake, a bleak premonition.
Perhaps waking up again in the familiar, yet now sinister, training apartment, that invasive drug-pumping device forcibly attached to his chest.
The subsequent days of isolating confinement, sustained only by bland milk and bread, another calculated, dehumanizing message from President Snow.
Haymitch's internal reflection on the monstrous transformation the games had forced upon him, from an innocent district piglet to a murderous beast.
Those disturbing forced viewings of past Hunger Games playing endlessly on the television screen.
The fleeting glimpse of that other, long-forgotten District 12 victor, someone clearly connected to the CVY's tradition.
And that enigmatic, curly-haired man lurking in the shadows, the pieces of the puzzle starting to fall into place.
The dawning realization of Snow's deep historical connection to Lucy Greybeard, the likely source of his unsettlingly detailed knowledge of District 12's secrets.
His understandable, explosive outburst of frustration and rage, the arrival of the ever-present peacekeepers.
And the surprisingly supportive F, being prepared for the hollow victory celebration while that oppressive device remained clamped to his chest.
A constant physical reminder of his captivity in the capital's control. Effie's unwavering belief in his inherent goodness.
Her quiet support in the face of the peacekeepers' warnings offered a small beacon of humanity in that.
Witnessing the devastating consequences of his act of rebellion, the resilient Mags confined to a wheelchair.
The once vibrant Wayas seemingly shattered, mentally broken. His genuine surprise at receiving that unexpected standing ovation from the Capitol audience.
Slowly understanding that it was all a carefully constructed narrative, painting him as a selfish, albeit entertaining, competitor, a mischievous rascal.
Deliberately obscuring the truth of his alliances, his protective actions, and his attempts to destroy the arena itself.
His quiet, almost imperceptible act of defiance towards Snow during the victor's crowning ceremony, that muttered, sardonic remark, I guess Snow lands on top.
Snow's chilling, subtly menacing reply, enjoy your homecoming.
That forced 10-day Capitol victory tour, displaying him like a caged bird for the public's amusement, a complete fabrication.
Effie remained his only consistent source of genuine support throughout that dehumanizing ordeal.
Finally learning the horrifying truth from Plutarch, that Leonard Dove was never released.
That the phone call, their hopeful reunion, was nothing more than a cruelly calculated manipulation to ensure his compliance.
Returning to the desolate District 12, finally having that drug-pumping device removed, and that immediate, overwhelming craving for the drug.
His tragic descent into addiction, a stark and heartbreaking contrast to his previous unwavering sobriety.
Snow's final, deeply personal act of cruelty on the train journey back to District 12, forcing Haymitch to witness the silent coffins of his fellow tributes.
Just pure sadism. Arriving home to the devastating sight of his house engulfed in flames, his beloved mother and younger brother, Sid, trapped inside.
That agonizing feeling of utter helplessness as Birdo and Blair physically restrained him, forcing him to witness their horrific deaths.
The crushing weight of self-blame, adding his mother and Sid to that ever-growing list of those he felt he had failed to protect.
Learning the news of Wyatt's father's suicide, another tragic ripple effect of the Capitol's brutal games.
The somber joint funeral for all the fallen, a collective expression of grief and loss that permeated the entire...
Catching sight of Merrily Donner amidst the mourners, the horrifying realization dawning on
that his family's deaths weren't a random tragedy, but a deliberate act of arson orchestrated by the vengeful hand of President Snow.
His subsequent descent into a chemically induced haze to escape the unbearable pain, and then driven by a desperate need for connection.
Seeking out Lenore Dove in their secret meadow, their brief, emotionally charged reunion so cruelly cut short.
Those poisoned gumdrops, yet another calculated blow from Snow's arsenal of cruelty.
The crushing weight of his broken promise to protect her, her final heartbreaking word, "I love you like all fire."
And that desperate plea, "Don't let the sun rise on the reaping again."
Haymitch's utter devastation, the complete shattering of his spirit, leading to his agonizing decision to push away anyone he still cared about.
Believing it was the only way to shield them from Snow's relentless wrath, severing those long-standing ties with Birdo and Blair.
A necessary act of self-imposed isolation, but one that undoubtedly caused him immense pain.
Receiving his meager victor winnings, the insulting deduction for the bread and milk he had consumed during his captivity.
Just another one of Snow's twisted, petty games designed to further humiliate and control.
Numbing the unbearable pain with copious amounts of alcohol and sleep syrup, desperately seeking oblivion.
That constant internal battle waging within him, the agonizing conflict between desperately wanting to forget Lenore Dove to ease the pain and the equally powerful need to remember her.
Waking up naked and disoriented outside, driven by a primal need to find Lenore Dove's final resting.
Reluctantly guided by a still resentful Birdo. Visiting her grave, the quiet act of burying the flinch striker beside her, a final act of love and closure.
But the nightmares persisted, relentlessly haunting him with vivid images of Lenore Dove and all the others he had been forced to kill.
His physical health began to deteriorate, mirroring the decay of his once cherished home.
Effie's surprisingly determined arrival for his mandatory victory tour, her well-intentioned but ultimately futile attempts to sober him up.
And the fabricated, carefully constructed story she presented to the public about his loved one's deaths and accident, appendicitis.
Plutarch's pointed revelation during their stop in District 11 that the burgeoning rebellion desperately needed Haymitch's involvement.
His initial vehement refusal, the feeling that he had absolutely nothing left to live for.
Plutarch's stark, logical counter-argument, he also had nothing left to lose.
Finally agreeing to lend his support to the nascent rebellion, but making it his sole grim mission to somehow forget the immense losses that haunted him.
Living a life of self-imposed isolation, constantly monitoring Capitol news, desperately trying to understand the forces at play.
Katniss's later poignant observation of his solitary, guarded existence in Victor's village.
Those forced public appearances at the annual reaping ceremonies, the Capitol still clinging to their distorted, fabricated image of him.
Mentoring a staggering total of 46 tributes over the intervening years, all of whom tragically perished in the arena.
46. Remaining the sole living victor from District 12, a constant, painful reminder of his survival and everyone else's loss.
Katniss's initial harsh assumption that his cynicism and alcoholism were the reason no other tribute from District 12 had ever won.
His increasingly strained and distant relationship with the ever-optimistic Effie.
His frequent, almost ritualistic visits to the Hob, seeking solace in alcohol, observing Birdo, Astrid, and their daughters.
The sight of Katniss's braids, an unexpected trigger, a painful reminder of Luella.
Then witnessing the tragic accident in the mines that claimed Birdo's life, followed by the poignant image of a now solitary Katniss in the Hob.
Observing the fates of other victors he had mentored over the years, Finnick, Joanna, Kashmir, all living under Snow's oppressive thumb.
Haymitch serving as a chilling example of the consequences of defiance. His infrequent, strained interactions with other surviving victors, Mags, Wyos, Bay, Chaff.
A shared understanding of their unique, horrific burden, the arrival of the fateful 74th Hunger Games.
And his now predictable drunken state at the reaping ceremony, that awkward hug with Effie, his stumbling fall off the stage.
A stark and public illustration of his deeply broken state, a man drowning in grief. Then, mentoring Katniss Everdeen and Peeta Mellark.
That Sutter's sharp pang of recognition in Katniss Birdo's daughter, her appearance, her spirit, echoing the memory of Luella.
Must have shaken him. His strange, seemingly callous comment to Katniss on the stage, "I like her more than you."
Effie's barely concealed exasperation with his behavior on the train contrasted with Katniss and Peeta's unexpected act of helping him when he was sick.
His initial, brutally honest advice, "Stay alive."
That sudden, violent act of punching Peeta and Katniss's immediate protective intervention.
Her instinctive knife skills in that moment, unexpectedly reminding him of his old friend Blair.
The reluctant agreement he made to at least attempt to stay sober enough to offer them some semblance of mentorship.
His surprisingly composed and insightful appearance during their training session, a flicker of the strategist he once was.
His astute observation about Katniss and Peeta holding hands as the perfect touch of rebellion.
A subtle callback to his own past promises of defiance with Leonard Dove and Mace Lee.
Offering them genuinely good, strategic advice, emphasizing the crucial importance of solidarity, lessons learned from his own game.
His tentative, almost hesitant renewal of connection with Effie, that unconscious slip of the tongue, accidentally calling Katniss sweetheart.
A fleeting, poignant reminder of Luella, revealing the deep and lasting impact she had on him.
His genuine delight and almost paternal pride at Katniss's audacious and rebellious act in front of the game.
Peeta's insightful observation, noting the surprising similarities in the core personalities of Haymitch and Katniss.
Their frequent, often heated clashes during the interview coaching session, further proving Peeta's point.
His crucial role in helping Peeta devise that brilliant strategy of confessing his love for Katniss to gain sponsors.
His final, urgent pieces of advice before they enter the arena: get the hell out of there and don't go anywhere near the cornucopia. And again,
"Stay alive!" His private internal monologue revealing his growing care for Katniss and Peeta, even referencing Lenore Dove.
His deliberate choice to prioritize Katniss's survival, recognizing Peeta's inherent selflessness.
His surprisingly effective efforts behind the scenes to secure crucial sponsorships for Kat. The unexpected possibility of both winning.
Leading to his frantic efforts to protect them both, sending those coded notes to encourage the star-crossed lovers act.
Katniss herself acknowledging the striking similarities between her own stubborn nature and Haymitch.
Their surprisingly effective communication through sponsor gifts. Haymitch even agreeing to be interviewed about his tributes reaching the late stage.
A significant departure. Katniss's own reflections on how Haymitch won his games, noting the stark contrast between the broken man she knew and the cunning victor he must.
Their conclusion that he won by outsmarting everyone, especially with the force field.
Katniss's lingering questions: had he always been this broken? Had he tried to help his early tributes?
The almost unbelievable outcome, both Katniss and Peeta emerging as joint victors.
Haymitch's first meeting with Katniss after her release, her immediate embrace, and his quiet, heartfelt whisper, "Nice job, sweetheart."
His immediate and forceful refusal to allow the game makers to surgically alter Katniss.
His urgent warning about the Capitol's simmering anger, and his crucial advice to play up the crazy-in-love defense for Snow.
The Capitol audience's continued, almost baffling affection for Haymitch.
Katniss and Peeta's unexpected victory reigniting those long-dormant promises Haymitch had made to Lenore Dove and Mace Lee.
Promises of defiance. His decision to finally join the burgeoning rebellion led by Plutarch Evansby.
The very same man who had subtly observed him 24 years prior. The increasingly stark parallels between Haymitch's life and Katniss's path.
His ongoing, relentless struggles with alcohol and the persistent nightmares, moving into Victor's village with Katniss and Peeta.
His severe withdrawal during an alcohol shortage, the terrifying hallucinations, undoubtedly linked to his trauma.
Katniss's attempts to rouse him, and his violent, instinctual reaction with his knife.
Offering Katniss and Peeta cynical but necessary advice on convincingly portraying their fabricated.
Katniss confiding in Haymitch about Snow's direct threats against her family.
His quiet, understanding reaction, remembering his own devastating experiences with Snow's ruthlessness.
His typically cynical but grounded advice regarding Peeta as a partner in their public charade.
Their pivotal visit to District 11, Katniss's spontaneous deviation from the script, and Haymitch's quick thinking leading them to Plutarch's old adage.
Finally telling Peeta the truth about Snow's threat against Katniss's loved one, promising no more secrets.
Their joint decision for Katniss and Peeta to publicly announce their engagement, Effie restoring Haymitch's phone.
And her heartfelt request for him to give Katniss away at her wedding. His surprising eagerness.
His immediate and fearless intervention to stop Gale's whipping, confronting Cray. His cynical but knowing response to Katniss's idea of a small uprising.
Aware of the larger rebellion, the chilling announcement of the third quarter quell.
Potentially sending Haymitch back into the arena. Peeta and Katniss's desperate pleas for Haymitch to let Peeta volunteer.
Katniss drinking with Haymitch, suggesting he go into the arena. His grim agreement. Their plan to save Peeta at all costs.
Haymitch immediately forming an alliance with multiple districts, echoing the Nettie newcomers.
Peeta destroying Haymitch's liquor supply, forcing reluctant sobriety and training. Katniss noting his surprising strength but poor endurance.
And lost knife skills. His name being called at the reaping, Peeta volunteering. Haymitch's seemingly emotionless reaction to the other victors reaped.
Mags, Wyas, Bee, Chaff, Finnick, Joanna. A mask hiding grief. Katniss and Peeta fooled by the Capitol's propaganda highlights of Haymitch's games.
Katniss's horrified thought that Haymitch might have killed Mason. Haymitch walking in as they discussed it, drinking again.
Effie giving Haymitch a gold bracelet to match Katniss's pin. Haymitch advising them to stay in love and make allies.
Katniss wanting Mags, Bay, and Wyas, echoing Haymitch's past allies. His final advice, stay alive and...
You just remember who the real enemy is.
Immediately planning with the rebels. Finnick, Joanna, Mags, Bay, Wyas, giving Finnick the gold bracelet as a sign of trust.
Informing Joanna about Katniss's preference for Bay and Wyas. Working with Plutarch to protect Katniss and Peeta.
Witnessing the deaths of Mags and Wyas as part of the rebel plan must have been agonizing.
The plan to extract Katniss and Peeta failing to include Peeta. Katniss's furious confrontation after learning the truth about the rebellion.
Her realization that she was the Mockingjay. Haymitch having to tell Katniss that Peeta had been hijacked.
Katniss's violent reaction. Their bitter argument. Learning about the bombing of District 12.
Haymitch's forced sobriety in District 13 and severe withdrawal. His critical reaction to Katniss's initial Mockingjay footage.
Convincing the rebels to send Katniss into the field. His reminiscent conversation with Plutarch about history and forming a republic.
Guiding Katniss during her missions, including in District 8. Witnessing Katniss say, "Fire is catching."
Echoing Leonard Dove. His relief when Katniss wasn't punished for disobeying orders. Refusing to return to the ruins of District 12, the meadow.
Though Plutarch initially blamed it on alcohol, watching Katniss sing The Hanging Tree in that meadow.
Comforting Katniss after she learned Snow was torturing Peeta, that is determined to rescue Peeta.
Haymitch is concerned for Katniss, offering her sedation, revealing his own coping mechanism. Katniss realizing Haymitch had lost so many.
Allowing Katniss to help with Peeta's rescue by filming a propos with Finnick. His discomfort with Plutarch asking Finnick to reveal Snow's abuse.
Revealing to Katniss that Snow had his family and Lenore Dove killed after his victory.
Explaining why Snow kept him alive, as an example. Katniss realizing she and Peeta were the first people Haymitch had let close since Lenore Dove.
The successful rescue of Peeta, Joanna, Mason, and Annie. His pain at seeing Finnick and Annie reunited, a joy he'd never experienced.
The disastrous reunion with the hijacked Peeta in his attack on Kat. Haymitch's shock.
Understanding Peeta had been hijacked by Tracker Jacker Venom, echoing Lulu's drugging, helping with Peeta's recovery.
Keeping Katniss updated while she was in the field. Guiding Katniss during the assault on District 2.
Witnessing Katniss get shot, likely reliving past losses. Peeta eventually being well enough to speak with Haymitch, their tense conversation.
Peeta wanting to see Katniss. Haymitch facilitating their meeting but not interfering when it ended badly. His sadness at their changed relationship.
Joking about his age and attractiveness when a task force was being formed. His suspicion of Coin sending Peeta to Katniss's squad.
Fearing Coin wanted Peeta to kill Katniss. Intervening when Katniss called Peeta a mutt, reminding her who the real enemy was.
Referencing their deal to save Peeta. The rebels' victory, Snow's overthrow, but at the cost of Prim's death.
Astrid's grief and withdrawal, leaving Haymitch to become a father figure to the traumatized Katniss. His difficulty caring for her.
Bringing Katniss news of Snow's trial and execution, fighting alongside Plutarch to prevent Coin from executing Effie.
His continued drinking despite being Katniss's guardian. His violent reaction to Katniss waking him with water, a lingering trauma effect.
Commenting on Katniss regaining her voice, his immediate regret at his insensitive boy trouble question, bringing Katniss food and pills on execution day.
attending Coin's meeting about a final Hunger Games with capital children, his crucial yes vote alongside Katniss.
Showing understanding and support despite seemingly going against his promise to Leonard Dove, witnessing Snow's death by the mob.
His and Plutarch's manipulation at Katniss's trial, portraying her as shell-shocked, taking Katniss home to District 12, becoming her legal guardian.
Collecting all the alcohol he could find on the journey home. Peeta's eventual return, the reunion of their family.
Haymitch's deep reflection on his similarities with Katniss, acknowledging her greater intelligence and perhaps luck.
Realizing Katniss had finished what he started, stopping the Hunger Games, their creation of a memorial book.
Haymitch, initially reluctant, then compelled to share his stories of Birdo, Mason, Sid, his tributes, comrades, and finally Lenore Dove.
Fulfilling his promise to her, Katniss bringing him geese eggs, Haymitch raising the geese with Peeta's help, ensuring they imprinted on him.
His awareness of his failing health, but his changed relationship with alcohol, drinking out of habit, not to forget.
His realization that Leonard Dove had been with him throughout his life, her memory evolving from pain to a comforting presence.
Their enduring love, echoing the geese's lifelong bond and Lenore Dove's word, "Nothing you can take from me was ever worth keeping."
This profound deep dive into the entirety of Haymitch Abernathy's life, now so richly illuminated by the added layers of Sunrise on the Reaping, truly provides you with a far more nuanced and complete understanding of this incredibly complex character.
Yeah, absolutely.
The sheer weight of his accumulated trauma, the depth and enduring power of his love for Lenore Dove, the magnitude of his losses, and ultimately, his quiet but undeniable resilience all come into sharper, more poignant.
Absolutely. Understanding the intricate tapestry of his past finally eliminates many of his seemingly cynical or self-destructive actions in the original trilogy, and dramatically amplifies the significance of his eventual unwavering commitment to both Katniss and the fight against the Capitol.
It really does. It leaves us with a powerful question for you, the listener. How does this deeper, more comprehensive understanding of Haymitch Abernathy fundamentally reshape your perspective on the entire Hunger Games saga?
Yeah, what changes for you?
And which other characters within this rich and complex world might harbor similarly intricate and heartbreaking backstories just waiting to be uncovered?